as you can imagine, this can create a very chaotic and potentially dangerous situation very, very quickly, especially when the person on the receiving end of it is completely unsuspecting. If the mere presence of AR-15s is so dangerous, especially around kids, if they do absolutely nothing but end lives, why were they in the hands of the people that have been causing the most chaos and destruction in our country over the last few years? So if you're a parent that has been convinced to believe that there is nothing harmful about this and that it's totally fine and that it's the same as if you were to sit down and have a discussion with your child about sex and about puberty, you have lost your freaking mind. Mark Zuckerberg drops a bomb last week on the Joe Rogan show. Or people that like to get up there and tell you that you have a constitutional right to an abortion. That's the only thing they ever cite the Constitution for. They are actively denying people their basic human rights. Hello, welcome back to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here or if you've been here before and have not yet subscribed, then you should probably do that like right now. I'll wait. Thank you so much for doing that. Didn't want to make it weird. So on my channel, I like to give my opinion and perspective on things that are happening today that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us that are trying to raise kids in the insanity that is today's society. We are not CEOs of big corporations. We are not part of the mainstream media, and we do not live in the Hollywood bubble. We are also not politicians in Washington, D.C., but we do have to live with the decisions being made by the people in the previously mentioned categories. If you feel like that describes you, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment below. Also be sure that you are subscribed. All of these things help me to grow my channel and to reach more people that also value logic, reason, and sanity. Also be sure to follow me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides that I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So today I just wanted to cover a few things that I honestly feel like more people need to know about that unfortunately most people probably don't even know are happening or have happened. We're not really surprised by that, by the biased media and the way that they operate, so that is why it's so important that those of us who are not afraid to speak out and to shine light on these things actually do so, because we know that the media is not going to do it for us. So the first story that I wanted to talk about was in reference to Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and the fact that in less than a week's time, she has been swatted not once, not twice, but 3 times in less than a week. And what swatting is a criminal harassment tactic where the culprit deceives emergency services into sending an armed response team to another person's address. So essentially somebody makes a prank call to 911 services, alerting them of a fake emergency situation, severe enough to dispatch a large team of officers to that person's home. So as you can imagine, this can create a very chaotic and potentially dangerous situation very, very quickly, especially when the person on the receiving end of it is completely unsuspecting and in danger of reacting in a way that the police might feel aligns with the threat that they have been alerted to. So they don't know that the person in the house isn't aware of the situation. All they have is the information that there is a potential threat in this home, and this person doesn't know to be careful, to be calm. So it says, in the first encounter, officers were dispatched to Greene's residence in reference to a male who had been shot 5 times in a bathtub. The call came in from a VA crisis line. As the details continued to be relayed, it was reported that the female was still in the residence and possibly had some children inside with her. The female being in reference to Marjorie Taylor Greene. So somebody made a prank call to the police department in Rome, Georgia, where Marjorie Taylor Greene lives, and told them that somebody in her home had been shot 5 times and was now in her bathtub. This was obviously something to be taken seriously because the police don't know if this is real or not, but this is such a severe situation where they would dispatch a large team of officers to this home based on this information. So she was abruptly woken up in the middle of the night. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning by this swarm of police officers who at the time, in that moment, believed that there was a very serious threat happening within her home. She said she got up, out of bed. She said she usually reaches for a handgun that she keeps next to her bed for protection, and she usually would carry it with her for the same reason. She said she had a gut feeling to leave it there and to not carry it with her to the door, which is a really good thing that she did, that she chose to do that because, in the police's mind, all they know is that there's a potential threat, a potential, murder situation happening in her home. And if she shows up at the door holding a gun, potentially like the murder weapon, all they know is the information that they have in that moment. So it obviously could have been very, very dangerous, very chaotic, could have escalated and actually gone downhill very quickly. But when she opened the door, she was very calm, was able to talk to them. Even the police officer said to her after, evaluating the situation and discussing, after she let them know that there was nothing happening in her home, the police officer said, "I think you've been swatted." But the situation doesn't end there. Hours later, Rome City or Floyd County authorities received a call from a computer-generated voice which said they were upset with Greene's proposal to criminalize transgender surgeries and hormone therapies for children. So they did it again. And the reason for all of this chaos, for sending mobs and swarms of police officers to her home, was because they did not like a piece of legislation that she was presenting about transgender surgeries. So this is the party of tolerance and acceptance, willing to send a SWAT team to a representative's home that they disagree with, potentially endangering their life. And Marjorie Taylor Greene said, they're trying to have me killed. They're trying to have me murdered. Which this situation, as it played out, could have very easily ended that way. And I don't say that to sound dramatic. I am not a dramatic person. I don't like to over dramatize things for attention. I truly believe that one misstep, one eye blink in the wrong direction, and this could have very, very easily had a completely different outcome. But that's not all. For Thursday's SWAT, multiple officers from the Rome Police Department showed up at Greene's home shortly before 3 a.m. They were responding to a call that allegedly entailed a male possibly shooting his family members and then himself. The suspect, who called through an internet chat that appeared to be a suicide crisis line, reportedly told police responders that a man came out as transgender and claimed they shot the family at Greene's address. It was a false report. "If anyone tried to stop me from shooting myself, I will shoot them," said the caller, who reportedly submitted the name Wayne Greene, and warned that they would be waiting for us, according to the police report. The police report states the Rome officers went to the front door and explained the situation to the freshman congresswoman. A press statement also confirmed this was a second false report. The report also explains that Rome police couldn't identify the true source of the suicide chat line due to the person using a VPN. So it goes without saying that this is absolute insanity. And shockingly, there has been no outrage from the White House, no speaking out against this kind of behavior, no condemning it, saying that this is not how we handle opposition, this is not how we handle things that we don't agree with. We bring pieces of legislation to the White House to deliberate about, and that is how, we handle things in this country. But of course, the only thing that Biden has been doing is taking to the White House podium to talk about how big of a threat MAGA Republicans are, while his voters are sending SWAT teams to members of Congress's home in the middle of the night. Question: were there any Republicans making threats against members of Congress when you just signed a bill to increase taxes on everyone making over $10,000 a year? Or did anybody call mobs to the streets over the fact that you just hired almost 90,000 new IRS agents, armed them, and then gave them permission to use deadly force if necessary? And last time I checked, nobody was threatening Rachel Levine for getting up in the White House podium and encouraging more gender surgeries on children that remove their reproductive organs and body parts. Second story of the day. We all know that Beto O'Rourke has just big hopes and dreams of becoming the next governor of Texas. And I mean, is there any candidate that is more thirsty for attention and power than Beto O'Rourke? I mean, you can almost cut through the desperation with a knife. This man has no morals and no boundaries and no limits. He will do or say anything to get that position as governor. And of course, one of his main focuses for years, as we remember in the presidential candidate debates, he said, hell yes, I'm coming for your AR-15s, and the man cannot seem to stop talking about AR-15s. And for somebody who knows so little about them, he sure has a lot to say. But to him, they are more dangerous and more lethal than fentanyl, which is actually considered a weapon of mass destruction that is just pouring over our southern border, of which he would not address as governor of Texas if, heaven forbid, he ever got into that position. More threatening than nuclear weapons. There's literally nothing in Beto's eyes that is more threatening than even the mere presence of AR-15s. So why is it that for someone that is so adamantly against these kind of firearms and so convinced that they are so threatening, and especially would not even dream of the possibility of them being used for protection in schools to keep mass shooters out of the buildings, to deter them from terrorizing our classrooms, for someone that is so adamant against these things, why has he not said anything about the Antifa members that were armed with AR-15s to provide armed security to families that were bringing their children to a drag queen event in Roanoke, Texas, just a couple of days ago? If the mere presence of AR-15s is so dangerous, especially around kids, if they do absolutely nothing but end lives, why were they in the hands of the people that have been causing the most chaos and destruction in our country over the last few years? And I was actually messaging a friend who was at this drag event outside the building where the event was being held, and he said he counted at least 9 Antifa members dressed in black walking up and down the street carrying their AR-15s. So again, where's Beto to condemn this situation? For somebody that literally, I'm sure, talks about AR-15s in his sleep, he's sure been quiet on this one. Third story. Remember when the Hunter Biden laptop story broke just before the 2020 election? I mean, how could we forget, honestly? And anyone, including the New York Post, which is the oldest publication in the country, anyone who shared it was suspended from social media. Not just restricted, but full on suspended. And their accounts were suspended for spreading misinformation. And the media went out there saying that this whole thing was just Russian disinformation, but nobody censored them. Now, all of those of us who have half a brain or even, 2 brain cells to rub together, we knew that this story was true. And we knew that the contents of that laptop were legit. And we also knew why it was being censored, because we knew that this kind of thing would matter to the majority of Americans. And they knew that it would matter to the majority of Americans, the people that are still led by some semblance of a conscience, that this stuff would probably impact the way that they were voting. We knew that's why they were censoring it, and if it really had no basis and no legitimacy, they would not have been as diligent and as strict with how this story was shared when. But then, of course, week after week, month after month, after hearing that this whole thing was just not true, that the laptop was illegitimate, that, Hunter saying that he didn't know if it was his laptop or not. I mean, who forgets that they dropped off a laptop? But, and then Mark Zuckerberg drops a bomb last week on the Joe Rogan show. In an interview on the Joe Rogan Experience released Thursday, the Facebook co-founder admitted that his platform, while not going as far as Twitter, I don't think it matters, Mark. I don't think it still worked to decrease the story's reach at the request of the FBI. He went on to explain that at Facebook, during the 5 to 7 days while the Hunter Biden laptop story was being reviewed by fact checkers, they decreased distribution. You could still share it, you could still consume it, but the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less, so fewer people saw it than otherwise. By what percentage? Rogan asked. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful, Zuckerberg replied. So he knows that his platform played a significant role in the suppression of this information. So why does it matter now? I mean, this is 2 years later, obviously not going to have the impact on an election that happened 2 years ago. But what I'm hoping is that people will see that these social media platforms are biased and media organizations are biased, and they will withhold information from you to sway you to vote the way that they want you to vote, whether it's in your best.
I just wanted to add in here that we now know the information on Hunter's laptop is real. The media knew it at the time, and the social media platforms knew it at the time as well. Oh, like and subscribe.
It's in your best interest or not, whether the representatives that they are supporting are actually going to do good in your community and in your city and in your state. It means that we need to be more diligent to make sure that we are getting the full story so that we can make informed decisions. That when a representative gets up there and says, you know, X, Y, and Z about who they are and what they want to do, that what's going on behind the scenes and their record actually demonstrates that they are that kind of person. If they have a record of corruption or condoning depraved behavior, then chances are that is what they're going to bring to office. That is what they are going to bring as they represent you. They are not going to bring the things that they're just talking about. They're going to bring who they actually are. So that is why we need to be looking for this information ourselves, because Facebook fact checkers do not actually check facts. The next story I came across, well, yesterday, a school board meeting was held in Hillsborough County, Florida, where parents showed up to speak out against a new book that is now available to their middle school children in their school libraries. Now, among the many graphic things that this book describes and gives instructions to young children on how to do sexually with themselves and with others, it encourages kids to go on adult sex apps. I mean, just when we think it can't get any worse. And of course, there are so many parents that say, well, our kids will be exposed to it at some point anyway, so, why protect them from it? You're a lazy parent. It's your job to set boundaries for your kids and guard the fact that their brains are so young and impressionable, and introducing graphic images and concepts to them that they are far too young to understand. They're not old enough to understand healthy sexuality and self-control. You're setting them up to fail. You're setting them up for a lifetime of not respecting themselves or the people that they get into relationships with. You're warping their idea of what well-rounded connections with other people means and what that even looks like, and you're planting the idea that their bodies are nothing more than something that somebody else can take advantage of. So if you're a parent that has been convinced to believe that there is nothing harmful about this and that it's totally fine and that it's the same as if you were to sit down and have a discussion with your child about sex and about puberty, you have lost your freaking mind, because this is so detrimental to children. It is so harmful to their psychology, and it is not something that they need to be focusing on. Let your child be a child. Let your child be innocent. Let your child enjoy playing with toys and acting out silly skits and drawing pictures and riding their bike. Let them be a child. And last but not least is the January 6th detainees. Alex Bersowitz, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, posted a video of Bonnie Nichols, whose husband Ryan Nichols has been in the DC jail for 590 days. Ryan Nichols is a veteran. He has served in the military. He has fought for our country. He is somebody that suffers from PTSD, and he was at the January 6th rally. I believe he actually went into the Capitol building, and he has not been charged with anything at this time, but he has been in solitary confinement in the DC jail for almost 19 months. And in the US, it is actually illegal to put somebody in solitary confinement for more than 21 days. So there are still hundreds of people that are being detained in the DC jail for the January 6th incident, riot, if you want to call it that. They are being tortured and starved and beaten. They have been denied due process, and all for being present on January 6th. Whether they broke anything or not, vandalized anything or not, whether they were just kind of following the crowd and walking with people. And I am not condoning any of it. These people should have not been in the building. They should not have broken. They should not have behaved in this way. It is absolutely reprehensible. But the things that they are experiencing and being put through is absolutely reprehensible. It is un-American. It is unconstitutional for people that like to get up there and tell you that you have a constitutional right to an abortion. That's the only thing they ever cite the Constitution for. They are actively denying people their basic human rights. We need more attention on this. We need to be talking about it more because these people are still in there. Ryan hasn't seen his children in 19 months. He hasn't been home. He has just been through some of the worst imaginable conditions right here on American soil. I will post Bonnie's video probably on Rumble because I honestly feel like if I put it on YouTube, it'll get flagged. I will post a link below so that you can watch it. She does have a Give, Send, Go account that you can donate to help her family with the legal expenses because they have been fighting this every day for more than a year and a half. And of course, those costs add up. And at least, you know, if nothing else, we can at least help these families fight these battles and financially support them because, as she says in her video, there is no end in sight. So please watch that below. I encourage it. So these are the stories that I wanted to bring more attention to today. I think that it's so easy sometimes to get caught up in whatever narrative we are being driven towards through the media. Which they are very effective at. We pay attention to the things that they want us to pay attention to, which is why I wanted to talk about more of these stories that aren't getting the attention that they deserve. So if you come across more stories that you think need more attention, my email address is in the description box. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on these things that are happening. I would love to have more of a discussion in the comment section. Again, like, share, subscribe, help me to grow this channel and provide more of a conservative voice and a voice of reason and logic to such an insane time in our history. So I appreciate you being here today, and I will see you next time.